Hi, Schlockmeister fans. We're going to watch a Jack Palance movie from the early 70s. It's called CRAZE. This is the god Chuku. Let's watch.
Look with favor upon
Our movie starts with a ceremony.
And cast the mantle of your protection.
That is Jack Palance you hear, presiding over this.
In the name of the power,
They're worshiping the god Chuku.
so that we may serve your needs.
This topless woman has to offer, I guess, a blood to it. She doesn't kill herself, though. This woman wants the god Chuku for herself.
Not until I take Chuku. He's mine. Before I understood died, he promised to give it to me. He belongs to me. You stole Chuku. He belongs to me and I'm taking him.
You're crazy. This God, it belongs to me and me alone.
Well, they struggle over the god.
Get out!
And now Chuku has a real sacrifice. He dumped her body in a river, and the cops come to his antique store to question him.
This is Detective Constable Russet. Are you Mr. Neil Moffram? Yes. You know this woman?
This is his partner, Ronnie.
How long have you been back?
I think Jack Palance is a bisexual.
Seen and heard you. Neil, you killed me, are you? No.
The store is hurting financially,
Hello?
and then he stumbles upon this.
Yes, you were interested. Well, it doesn't happen. Jesus Christ Almighty.
He credits the god Chuku for providing this thanks to the sacrifice.
£1,000 in gold coins here.
This will pay off all their creditors.
We can pay off everyone. What should we?
So Neil goes out to a bar and picks up this woman named Helena, the actress Julie Edge. Takes her home. He decides to
You mean you're not making all this up?
show her his god Chuku.
Come with me, Elena. Come. I want to present you.
She's not impressed, but he forces her to dance. I guess she's not the perfect woman because she doesn't seem to appreciate Chuku like he does. So, into the fire with her.
Burn that too.
I guess he's going to enlist Ronnie's help to get rid of her. She's a little charred at this point.
How about this thing? Leave it where it is.
Like the first body, they dump Elena in the river. Problem solved.
I'll put it in the van for you.
No.
So Neil has a plan here. He's got to keep sacrificing people to Chuku.
I'll take a look at the local papers and see if they're in the office.
So he's leaving town for a little while. He's got this elaborate plan involving his aunt.
Oh, don't be bad. It will do you good to get away.
And while I'm gone, why don't you stay here and don't leave the store?
He sets about creating an alibi. He sabotages his own car. And then he calls a service to come pick it up.
Hello? Rex again?
Then he goes to a bed and breakfast to meet his old friend Dolly. That is the famous British actress Diana Dors.
Tonight, he's in our set.
Oh, that means we could...
They had a fling at one point. That night he spikes her brandy, knocks her out, takes her keys. Put the plan into action here. He sneaks into his Aunt Louise's house. And scares the shit out of her. She's not dead yet, though. Carries her outside. She's quite wealthy.
Your secret, Chuku. Here is the sacrifice I promised you. This body and this soul now belongs to you.
He comes back to the bed and breakfast, sneaks into bed with her. As far as she knows, he was there all night long, which makes a good witness.
Why do you say that?
He's the only living relative, so
Not Louisa died a natural death. You certainly would have summoned me here.
he's of course contacted by the police.
Her body was discovered early this morning by a milkman. And Mr. Mottram spent the night with you?
Well, I went to bed with him, that's what you mean.
What time?
Well, really, Sergeant, I wasn't clock watching. I was full of food, wine, and feeling no pain.
She vouches for him.
Picked up by the Rexford garage and fixed. He did call on Mr. Penwell and transact some business in brass antiques. I don't think he's our man, and I'm certain he is. Well, if you question him, you won't crack.
He inherits the mansion,
Albeit separate.
as well as other things.
We've come to about £29,000.
His name was cropped up twice in 3 murders. There are 60 million people living in the British Isles, almost 9 million of them in metropolitan London. I'm no mathematician, but the odds against the same name coming up twice are astronomical.
He goes to talk to Dolly again.
He had weird ideas of entertainment. I mean, his idea of a good night out was to take me to a coven. You know, all those crazy witches and things. Frightened me out of my wits. And then I suddenly realised that he was all involved with this black magic.
Then they question Ronnie a bit,
Not getting through to you.
rough him up.
Well, we'll just have to start all over again.
I can't stand it, Neil. The way they questioned and slapped me. He nearly choked me to death.
Oh, yes. We can run away from the police, but never from Chuku. As long as we serve him, we are safe. He will always protect us.
How? On whose terms?
Know the answer to that.
Well, that means what it's always meant. Sacrifice, reward, then another bloody sacrifice. When does it all end?
Never.
Are we having lunch together?
No, I've got something more important on my mind. Go anywhere you wish. It's Saturday. You're on your own. I'm busy.
What are you up to? Another sacrifice to the hungry Chuku?
I'd say
He then answers a personal ad
Swedish
for a
massage,
masseuse.
general tone-up, followed by double voltage vibrator, guaranteed to make a new man of you.
But I think he has other plans for her.
£20.
Yep, he's choking her. Another sacrifice to the hungry Chuku. Meanwhile, back at the shop, Ronnie has had enough. A fight ensues, which involves spear throwing. And involves, you throw a spear at me, I toss you through a window. The police close in as Jack is going crazy, swinging an axe around. With his dying breath.
Last sacrifice.
That's craze. Alright, let's talk about CRAZE. It's a movie that was on a lot of video store shelves back in the 80s. That's where I got it, rented it, copied it. Never actually watched it until probably the mid-90s. And then watched it again today. So I've seen this movie twice in my life. And you know what? I kind of like this movie. It's kind of weird. Jack Palance, it's a British movie actually. It takes place in the UK. But Jack Palance, well, he's not talking with a British accent, so I assume he's an American in Great Britain. And he runs this antique store. Now, in the basement of this antique store, he has this antique god Chuku, which he believes is a real god, and he decides that he needs to worship it and ultimately sacrifice people to it in order to get good things in his own life. So he sacrifices one woman after another, and good things start happening to him. He finds money and such, and he ends up killing his actual own aunt and inheriting her money and her mansion. So good things happen when Chuku is around. He even sells these expensive vase for a lot of money, and he credits Chuku with that as well. So interesting character is, I think his name is Norm, and that's Jack Palance's character. He has this other guy named Ronnie who runs the shop with him. It's hinted that they have a homosexual relationship, but Jack also likes women as well, so he's a bisexual, I guess. And he meets up with Diana Dors, who was kind of called the British Marilyn Monroe at one point in the late 50s, early 60s and such. She's actually on the cover of the Beatles' Sgt. Pepper album as well. She covers for him when he's murdering his aunt. Of course, she doesn't know because she was knocked unconscious because of the brandy that he spiked. Ultimately, the police think he's the guy, and they eventually track him down and are able to prove that, yeah, he was the killer. And it ends with him being shot at the end, and at his last dying breath, he runs into the spear that Chuku's holding for the last sacrifice to Chuku. So that's our film. Again, really kind of an odd film. I don't know I guess you could call it a horror movie. It's kind of fun. Not sure what Jack Palance was doing in this film. I didn't recognize anybody else other than Diana Dors either, but I'm not completely up on the British people. As far as I know, this DVD is not released in America. It's only on this PAL DVD. It's a legit PAL DVD. I think there's a bootleg DVD floating around in America, though. And this is a pretty good DVD, actually. It actually has a bunch of extras on it, including a documentary called Crazy Days, where this guy talks about Craze and talks about the director and all kinds of things about the movie. I watched about half of it, so interesting stuff there. So you can get this DVD probably for about $20 or so. It shows up on Amazon here and there. I like it. So anyway, I'm just curious if anybody else has seen the movie Craze, and if you did see it, what'd you think about it? Leave some comments down below. We'll talk about it. It's called Craze with Jack Palance, Martin Potter, and Diana Dors. Watch it. Leave some comments. Let's talk.